Hello, my name is Dr. Gaetano Lotrecchiano. I am the training director for the LEND CN, Children's National, in Washington, D.C. This presentation is to help you become aware of the maternal and child health leadership competencies that drive the LEND program, the curriculum, and the experiences that you will be part of during this year. A few words about competence. Competence is not only a skill. It's not something you can check a box off and expect that you will reach complete competence at the end of a year. Rather, more realistically, competence is something that you develop and strengthen over your entire life course. So in this year, you're going to be introduced to the important competencies that make up the MCH leadership landscape. So the leadership competencies developed by HRSA and the Maternal Child Health Bureau support current and future leaders, those of you in this program, defining the knowledge, skills, and necessary to lead in this field of developmental disabilities. It unifies the workforce on a common path so that all LEND trainees throughout the United States can be trained in a similar manner so that they can meet greater competence in key areas necessary to be a leader in the field of developmental disabilities. It equips a workforce with the knowledge, skills, personal characteristics, and values to improve the health of MCH populations. You'll see pictured here is a book. It's not a very long book. That is the product of maternal and child health at HRSA. And if you want to read the entire thing or access it, I put the link here within this slide. Who are MCH leaders? Well, they're diverse in disciplinary background. We have hearing and speech pathologists, we have pediatric dentists, we have administrators, we have people who work in developmental pediatricians, pediatrics, and so on. They are interdisciplinary in their teaming behavior, and they possess core knowledge and are knowledge seeking with aims to improve skills central to effective, self-reflective, and evidence-informed leadership. They strive to be attentive, responsive, and productive, empathetic, and respectful in attitudes and working habits. Committed to recruiting, training, and mentoring future MCH leaders to ensure the health and well-being of mothers, children, and families. They're also responsive to the community, their state, social, scientific, and/or demographic context in which they work. The developmental framework that MCHB puts forth for its leadership competencies is a process which begins with the focus on self, where leadership is directed at one's own learning through readings, instruction, reflection, and planning and serendipitous experiences. Individuals increasingly learn to direct their actions and grow towards specific issues, challenges, and attainment of desired goals. Leadership in others, the others sphere, which is the next circle outside of self, extends to coworkers, colleagues, trainees, fellow students, and patients. The behavior and attitudes of others are influenced and possibly altered through the actions and interactions of the individual. Leadership and influence can remain at the level of impact for long periods of time. The wider community, or the most outward part of this framework, extends to the broader impact on entire organizations, systems, general modes of practice, and even the knowledge base of what we know about developmental disabilities. These wider areas of impact and influence require additional skills and broader based understanding of the change process and factors that influence change over time. It should be noted that in each one of these areas, you will be exposed to both didactic and activity-based learning that will help you grow in competence in these three areas. Here are the core competencies based on those three areas of focus. In the area of self, the knowledge base associated with maternal and child health, the concept and practice of self-reflection, the ethics associated with being a leader in this field, and the development of critical thinking competence over time. In the area of others, this is more interactive, based on communication, negotiations and conflict resolution, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, honoring lived experience, teaching, coaching, and mentoring, and interdisciplinary and/or interprofessional team building. All of these areas will also be covered in this year as you develop your greater competency. Lastly, is this greater community outside of the people you may work with every day. And this is particularly important when we consider how systems work and placing our attention on the systems, which could be clinical, they could be public health systems, they could be policy systems, and maybe even therapeutic systems requiring certain types of protocols and so forth that come out of research. Lastly is in the area of policy directly related to policies that impact persons and especially children with disabilities. Again, all of this will be part of your training program to develop strength in these competencies over the next year. So let's look at each one a little more closely. So the competencies associated with self. What is the knowledge-based context? MCH is a specialty area within public health that focuses on the promotion of the health and well-being of mothers, children, infants to young adults, and families, including fathers, extended family, and other caregivers, as well as youth with special health care needs. This year, you will grow in your understanding about what that entails. Some of it will be knowledge-based. Some of it will be experiences that you have, either through participation and getting to know parents and their families, or even in clinical work. Your knowledge base will be increased as we go through the year. Self-reflection. Oftentimes in any workforce, we don't have enough time to self-reflect. This process of assessing the impact of your personal values, beliefs, communication styles, cultural influences, and experiences on one's personal and professional leadership style will be explored in this year. And that's always an exciting part because it gives us a chance to talk about where we're coming from and how where we're coming from affects how we operate as leaders within a field. Ethics is all important when it comes to behavior in professional roles that include general leadership, such as honesty, equity, integrity, understanding, responsibility, cultural responsiveness, and cultural competency, as well as ethics specific to the MCH population. You will, through your engagement in clinical opportunities, as well as you grow in your knowledge base and through self-reflection, understand what still needs to be part of your ethical plan as you grow, your plan, excuse me, as you grow stronger in your ethical knowledge and practice. And then lastly, critical thinking. Critical thinking is so important to any changing environment, and the developmental disabilities environment is changing all the time, either through policy, funding, or even practice. Critical thinking is the ability to identify an issue or problem, frame it as a specific question, consider it from multiple perspectives, evaluate relevant information, and develop a resolution or a response to the problem that can positively impact them. It's important to understand that these are not separate competencies exactly. As you can probably imagine, they are overlapping, dovetailing, and that as one competency grows, another one will get um, um, nudged to grow, etc. But in this year, you're going to find that we hope that you find out a lot about yourself and how you uh, uh, will need to develop in the future. We exchange ideas, not just to represent the discipline we come from, but to rather to intermingle what we know in one area, for instance, like hearing and speech, with another area that might include pediatric dentistry, and maybe another area that might um, be coming from a social perspective, like a social worker. We exchange and absorb the ideas from the other people that we're working with, not just represent what we know about our own field of care. These competencies are really in the category of working with others are really a large part of the LEND program, and you will notice, I'm sure, as the curriculum unfolds, how we can help you develop competency in yourself as a leader, as a future leader, and how these can become part of your leadership style or your leadership approach. Lastly, are the competencies that have to do with the larger community, the broader community, meaning the the fields that we work in, the policies that get generated, the ways in which interdisciplinary care or interprofessional care can be uh, can be performed. So this is very much coming from a public policy lens. Um, is a law, a regulation, a procedure, an administrative action, or voluntary practice of government that affects groups or population and influences the resources allocated, something that needs to be changed, is being changed, or at least needs to be informed by a systems approach that looks at the entire system and will downstream affect the way policy is written and the way it's disseminated. So, a systems approach is thinking and recognizing complexity and examines the linkages and interactions between components. Those could be norms, laws, resources, infrastructure, and individual behaviors that ultimately influence outcomes. So you may be unfamiliar with the way an entire system works. And in this year, you're going to be helped to understand how this lens is so important in dealing with providing care, but also providing insight into public policy that changes the way children with disabilities are actually cared for and resourced. We may not all be involved in policy work, but an MCH leader is very sensitive to the policies as they change, both on the national and state level. And you should possess policy skills, primarily in changing state and community environments, understand the language, understand how legislation works in our country and also on the state level. Understand the resources necessary to improve health and well-being for mothers, children, and families, and the need to be able to articulate those needs in the context of policy development and implementation at all levels. I hope this short presentation gives you a good introduction to what the MCH leadership competencies are and how they affect the way the curriculum is developed and implemented here at LEND at Children's National. Thank you.